Welcome to the Small Giants Fishbowl. This topic is building a thriving millennial workforce. What's the secret to attracting and retaining millennial employees? Today's workforce values an employer that cares for them and the totality of their lives. It sounds simple, but what does the approach look like in practice? In this Fishbowl, Chris Stakich, CEO of Rustic Pathways, will share the six-prong framework his company uses to attract, develop, and retain a workforce of more than 200 millennials across the globe. Okay, here we go.
Great to meet the Small Giant community here. And I'm excited to talk with all of you about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, because I think, if you're leading a company, at the end of the day, you're also building a culture and a community. And to get things done in a efficient and pleasurable way, it's really important to think about how do you build your community? How do you support and train your staff? So as Rachel mentioned, my name is Chris Stakich. I'm the CEO of a company called Rustic Pathways. Essentially, we take high school students to remote villages in developing countries to do community work. And so if you picture a high school student on their summer break or spring break, or a teacher with a group of students, they can travel with us through Costa Rica or Mongolia, the Fiji Islands, 19 different developing countries out there in the world. Just to give you a sense of our organization size, so you can think about how that relates to your own company. We have about 14,000 students traveling with us a year. We have 250 full-time employees that live across 20 different countries in the world. And in the summertime, we bring on 500 additional employees. So at our max size, we're dealing with about 750 people in-house, and 95% of them are millennials. And you can find countless article after article about millennials and managing millennials and who this group of people are. And no matter what you want to say about it, they are the workforce that's growing up through the ranks of all of our companies. And, without sounding full of ourselves or myself as an organization, I feel like we've really figured out a way to resonate with the group of millennials and build a community that stays here for a long time. And I think the mark of that, the statistic is, we do get a lot of millennials coming out of top 15 ranked colleges in the country. And some of those are still here 5, 9, 10 years later. And I think that's sort of remarkable with what we see. So a question out there to just sort of start off the conversation, maybe Rachel and Hafsa, you can help me with the comment section. I'm just curious, do people have millennials working for them currently? And are there any type of approaches that people have to create a more long-term employment at their company?
I see a couple of fingers pointing, so Michael, I see that. If you have your video on, how about a wave of your hand? There we go. Yeah, we see a couple. And we see I'm a millennial. Me too, it's okay.
Yep, perfect. Congratulations, you're younger than some of us. You have more life ahead of you. All right, well, I'll just sort of share the answer that we've come to, which is, we basically have tried to create an organization that provides an overall high quality life. Like, what are all the components? We know people want to make money. We know they want health insurance. Like, how do you actually create an extremely high quality life so that as people are out there talking with their friends and their peers, what they realize is that they have a better overall gig than the next person. They're like, hey, actually the grass is greener on my side of the fence. This is great. And like every other company, we face financial limitations. We cannot throw everything at people. So we have to think, well, how do you actually create a high quality life? As I looked at that question myself, I looked across a ton of different frameworks from a variety of different people. And what I personally settled on was a framework. I'm sorry, I sort of skipped these slides. Was a framework by Tony Robbins, which really speaks to the overall 6 needs that people have in their life, which is number 1, security, number 2, variety, number 3, self-worth, number 4, love, number 5, personal growth, number 6, giving back. And the question is, well, why this framework? Why would you choose this one? In doing some work with Tony Robbins earlier in my career, what I found was he has tested this framework out there across over 100 countries and over tens of millions of people, and has found this to be one of those just absolute truths out there in the world. And so in trusting that he's telling the truth, I thought that this is something that we're not just providing on the surface level for people, but this is what's living underneath the surface in people's subconscious and in their soul and in their body. And if we can help meet other people's needs, like their deeper needs beyond just like what you think of as a traditional company, then we'll be resonating with people from the inside out, and we'll be, a job that they wake up in the morning looking forward to, and a group of people where they're looking forward to going to the meeting, and where they're not naturally attracted to some other job coming across their email. So the next question was like, well, how do you accomplish these 6 needs within a company? Like, what are the actual real practical ways of doing that? And again, I will reiterate this 5 or 10 times throughout the talk. How do you do it in a cost-efficient way? And I think that's where a lot of companies who don't have, tons of money, go wrong. There's still a lot of hope for us normal companies out there. And so the first thing is looking at the topic of security. This is where you will find the most common things. And sorry, one more thing about this framework, if I can provide it. Level 1 security this is basically like the basic needs people need in life. It's the classic Maslow pyramid. It's like, we need a home to live in, we need clothes to wear, we need food, we need water, we need a paycheck that pays the bills, we need to live inside the budget. There's still like billions and billions of people that are just trying to meet the basic needs of life. Truth be told, once people meet those basic needs, they move to level 2, which is variety. They then want life to be exciting. They want to go on vacation. They want to do something on spring break. They want to go see the movies. They want to go out to dinner. Like, people actually naturally want variety in their life and some spiciness. Level 3 is self-worth. No one in your company wants to be a number in your Excel sheet. People don't want to be just some type of barcode. They want to be a real person working for a real company who has a real worth and real potential that's providing value to the company. The 4th is love. And I sort of joke about love in the workplace. Got to be careful about it. What this really talks to is human connection. Like, there is something deeper in our hearts and an ability to really connect with people in a human and meaningful way. And I'll talk about how we do that at Rustic Pathways. The 5th thing is personal growth. And this is sort of breaking through the barrier. When you get to a level where you feel like you're growing and gaining and learning and you're better every single day, there is an inherent part of all of us that feels awesome. We know on January 1st, when we all start going back to the gym and we stop drinking alcohol and we start eating healthy again, you just feel great. And that's how we want people to feel at Rustic Pathways. And the last thing, and most interestingly, I found with this framework, is the ultimate bullseye of this framework is that people feel best when they're giving back. And I find that to be true if you look at the great leaders in the world. You find Bill Gates dedicating all of his money trying to overcome some of the biggest problems in the world. And selfishly, it's probably because that's what's giving him the most value from the inside out. So let me jump right into the framework and stick to the practical ways that we do this at our company and the way that you could do it at your company. So first, we look at security. We try to pay at market level. Truth be told, we may pay a little bit below market level. We believe that, you have to pay people enough so that they can create a budget and they can pay their bills. But I would say paying at market level is not one of the ways in which we win or that we're beating competitors. We're certainly not competing with Google and Facebook and Amazon and Netflix as it relates to millennials. We are a lower paying company, but we do know we need to pay them enough so that they can actually live and have a sustainable life. The second thing is high quality benefits for individuals and families. Again, we take an approach where we're doing this in an efficient and realistic way. We give people the health care that they need for themselves and their family, dental and vision, and some life insurance, but it's not a huge expense to the company. It's realistic, and it's enough where we don't get any type of complaints about it. The next thing is paid time off and company holidays. We're probably a little bit more generous than most companies with paid time off. Of the 250 employees, 100% of them are working remotely. So by the nature of our jobs, to be honest, we don't know what people are doing at 2 o'clock on a Thursday anyway. We are a very remote working organization approach. Everything's driven through strategies and objectives and key performance indicators. We can see what people are accomplishing in a day. And to be honest, we don't care what time they wake up, what time they quit working. So for us, it's like a little bit like this is one of the ways we can win. We can be a little bit more flexible with paid time off. Another thing we do whenever we're running an internal competition within the company, a lot of times we reward teams with days off. And that's like a super fun, funny thing that always hits the company-wide email. This team is off doing fun things on a Friday afternoon. We also try to win with maternity and paternity leave. We feel like this is super important. We are a family feeling type organization. We want to support the partners of our staff. We want to support their children. We have, flexible environments when we are in company meetings where we allow people to bring kids or dogs and try to set up childcare or things like that. So this would be another area in which we would try to win. Now we're hitting a level where we're not even doing this yet, but part of security, what we'll be doing next year is trying to reach some type of market level 401k with the company match. Like I said, this is something we're not even doing yet, but I would say falls within the category of security and somewhere that we will get to. And then the last thing is a bonus sharing and profitability sharing at the end of the year. Again, we are not there as a company, but what I would consider winning across the entire spectrum of providing a secure job for someone's entire career is hitting these 6 different things. And so as we go from Rustic Pathways to the companies that you are out there running, my suggestion is to think, which one of these can you pick off? Which are the low-hanging fruit that you could really put out there on the front edge to win at? And when you decide, hey, it's actually, we have a lot of money. We're going to win at paying 401k and bonus and profitability, but we need people to come to the office every day. So no paid time off or quality of benefits or maternity leave. My suggestion is to be extremely vocal with people about that. Tell them that, our company wins in these 3 ways, but our company, we're not as good as other companies in these other 3 ways. And that also helps people find the right fit to make sure that your organization is the right one. Excuse me. Next, when we look at variety, this is looking at, now people have what they need. Excuse me. People have what they need to design, excuse me for one second.
Hey, Chris, I think you might be muted there. There we go.
Got it. I was trying not to cough at everybody. People have what they need to design a sustainable life for themselves and their family. They feel good. They feel secure. They feel like this is the starting line for this very successful career they can have. The next thing that they're going to want is variety. I will share what Rustic Pathways can do. This is likely not what you can do for variety. And so the whole point of this is, as you look at the truth of variety, people want variety. How do you translate that into your company? If everyone works together in one office, if people are working remotely, if you have a lot of contractors or consultants or full-time employees, what does variety actually mean for you? So for us, we have non-standard offices and the ability to work remotely. So when these young millennials apply for us, we say, great, you're hired as a marketing data analyst on the marketing team. You can live in any city in the world. You can live in Detroit, San Francisco, you can live in Barcelona or Sydney, Australia. We don't really care. And for our company, that's a huge benefit. It basically provides a lifestyle where young people feel like they can be out there in the world and even traveling while working at Rustic Pathways. As I said, we also have non-standard offices. From time to time, we'll open a seasonal office, and for 3 months, we'll say, hey, we have a seasonal office in Lake Tahoe in the wintertime. If people want to come there and ski, they can do that. We have a summer office in San Diego, and you can surf in the morning before you come into work. That's super fun. You can do that. Things like that help build the culture and keep people around for a long time. The second thing for Rustic Pathways, this is very unique for our company, but we have a staff travel policy where basically we require every staff member to escort a group overseas every year. So it keeps people in touch with the essence of the work that we do. And they travel with students and or a teacher to Cambodia or to Tanzania. And when they get there, we basically set up a week of like a familiarization experience on the ground so they can get more familiar with the communities that we operate with and the work that we actually do. But that staff travel policy is very helpful. People look forward to it every year. The next thing is our department, division, and company get-togethers. And so because we do not have a headquarters as a company, we do have a budget to allow teams to get together and every other year to get the whole company together. And so with these team get-togethers, you know, the big thing I encourage with the managers is like pick a very fun spot. You know, take them to Miami, take them to, you know, some cabin on a lake. Like do something cool and fun with people so that there's the work environment, but also there's the playtime. It works for our company. What we typically do is rent sort of like a giant communal living space. And the fun thing is if you think of 16 people in hotel rooms and you take that budget to get the biggest house in, you know, in Denver, Colorado, you can end up with this crazy mountain house that's super fun for people. Same thing with company get-togethers. I would also just throw out with our company get-togethers, I very often bring in outside speakers, outside experts, bring in people to talk about mindfulness and meditation or, you know, different things that play into people's lives. The last thing for us with variety is a leave of absence policy. This is out there for anyone, I think, who's worked at Rustic Pathways for up to 10 years. You can take up to a year leave of absence. It takes about 3 months to plan for that person's leave of absence. I believe we pay for the first 2 months, and then it's a non-paid leave of absence. But people really do look forward to this and save for it. And for those that have done it, it's been successful. So once you provide an organization where people have the security, where they feel like they have what they need to stay forever, now they have a lot of variety in their life. I think the next most important thing, and something all of us should be doing regardless, is creating an organization where there's very real self-worth. And so, you know, people do not like jobs where they're the 37th employee in the call center. And it's really, really, really important to, in a real way, to like help people understand how they are valuable to the organization, how they are uniquely important. For us, this all starts with running a very strong mission and vision driven organization. So our vision is to create a world where travel is an essential part of every education, because we believe that getting students out there in the world, living with people that speak different languages and practice different religions and listen to different music and eat different foods, it figuratively blows their minds and helps students think about how different their life is compared to all these other people living in communities around the world. Really challenges their perceptions on how the world works. Second thing that we do as a company is create a world where travel is a model of sustainable development. And so we have a lot of people that work in international development, managing our work on the ground and And we raised like hundreds of thousands of dollars for the communities overseas. So it's super important for us to help every employee at the organization connect to that vision. Like, what do they do on a daily basis that actually connects to that mission and vision in a very real way? Number two is sharing the accomplishments of that mission and that vision on a regular basis. That basically plays into point two, is you could name any employee, whether people work in customer service or marketing or sales or product delivery, or they work on the finance team. I can sit down and have a one-on-one with them and talk about how their role on a day-to-day basis plays into accomplishing what we did in a given year. And if you can't do that, your employees feel that. And so I really encourage you to think about every employee in your organization and ask yourself, are they fired up by this? Are they really excited about the work we do as a company? Do they know how they, as an individual, contribute to the accomplishments of the company? The last one I'll put is, second to last one is providing people with the right equipment and resources. This might have been uniquely difficult for us back in the day, where some of our American staff were getting iPhones and Apple computers, and some of our Costa Rican staff had, used PCs and old Androids. And so we needed to really provide people with equipment that not only made them sure that they could do their job, but that was modern day cutting edge equipment to feel like they're on sort of a cutting edge company. The last thing is the genuine appreciation for people's good work. So at Rustic Pathways, this comes in a variety of ways. Number one is we are one of those companies where it's always like, yay, nice job. And we're sending out staff hat emails that are celebrating all kinds of work that people are doing across the company. It goes a super long way for a remote working organization where people are cranking by themselves to be noticed, company-wide for something specific that they've done. Not just good job, but we want to thank so-and-so for, staying up late last night and managing this crazy problem that we had with a parent. The second thing is that I do all company quarterly calls, and those are typically 90-minute calls where we overview our vision and our strategy and what all the departments and divisions are doing, and again, how different people's work are pushing forward all these different areas of the company. And the last thing is on Fridays, I send out something called our Friday meditation, which basically highlights the best thing that's happened in the company that year. The best thing that's happened in the company that day. The second thing is what I call the life-changing ingredient, and it's something that I've absorbed that week through a podcast or reading an article or reading a book or something that really did change me, making me think differently about the world. And then the third part is something to marinate on, which is, a quote by some type of philosopher or whatever. But in those emails that go out to the whole company, it always highlights different employees and the type of stuff that they're doing. And so it's very important for us, but with people working so remotely, we're able to uniquely pull people back to the center and the core of the culture one at a time by highlighting the stuff that they're doing. The next thing is love. Want to make everyone feel like they're loved. And for us, this happens in a variety of ways. Love really points to creating deep connections. So as humans, we really do want this like human to human connection. And I find it interesting, I just heard this the other day, that if you take prison, for example, which is like one of the worst things that can happen, you get sent to prison. The worst thing that can happen in prison is you get sent to solitary confinement. And the reason for that is because without human to human connection, it's like torture. It's emotional and social torture inside. So knowing that that's a truth out there on the front lines of how we live, how can we as companies create a sense of real human connection? There's a couple ways we do it. Number one is ensuring that people feel like they belong in the organization. So for all of the full-time employees that get hired, I personally have a welcome call with them. I spend like an hour getting to know them and where they come from and their background and their family and their passions and what they like to do on the weekends. And it really, I mean, I very specifically am not like on the computer clearing emails while doing that. I live in San Francisco. I walk around Golden Gate Park and I just really like live in that conversation and think about, who is this person out there in Cleveland, Ohio that works for us? What a great human. The second thing is that I do as a CEO, talking with other people running organizations, is I do anniversary calls. So on everybody's work anniversary, I call them for 30 minutes and more catch up on life and what's going on. And my standard questions to them are like, if you could change 3 things in the company, what would you do? From your seat on the bus, what is 2 things you think I need to know? And then I just find out, like, how was this year? What were the goods and what were the bads? Like, how are things going with your manager? Like, what's up with you as it relates to Rustic Pathways? This is extremely helpful. It's time consuming, yes, but for me as a CEO, I have a very strong finger on the pulse of every level of the organization, from the executive team to middle managers to line managers to the front lines. I have a realistic perspective of what's going on with the customer service team. What's up with the marketing team this month. So those anniversary calls, they actually go a lot longer and further than I would have originally expected. By the way, I said I would mention this, but this is an example of something that's completely free. Like, you can just do this. It takes a little bit of time, but it doesn't cost any money. The next thing is develop a culture of trust and transparency. We have a modern day company that's extremely open book. I tell employees all the time, there's virtually no question you could ask me that I'm going to like skate around the answer. I will tell you the truth, for good or for bad. Our HR department claims that I overshare, but I think this is real life. Like, people should know what's going on. So on weekly meetings that I have with the executive team, on monthly meetings that we have with our entire senior leadership committee, it's basically the group of managers that manage people. There's about 35 of them. And then on the all quarterly calls, which can be up to 750 people, I show people I show them the exact financial results that I look at as the CEO. I talk about the financial results of the company, the sales results of the company, our net promoter score, our safety and risk management situation. It's an open book. Like, this is what is going on. And my hope is that people are looking at that, thinking like, this is the real company. This is the real stuff. And if I ever start a company or run a company, this is the types of things that I'll be dealing with and thinking. Developing that trust. Think of your own relationships with a significant other or a friend or your old college roommate. That sense of belonging, that sense of trust and transparency, like, those are the invisible ingredients that create connections between humans. The last thing, and this is important for a remote working organization, is how do you create the cross-pollination of all of these groups? So we have departments and divisions, we have country teams, and then we have people living in all these different areas. And so how do you ensure that people like stay connected all over the place? So one of those is, as an example, we're having a Christmas holiday party where it's going to be like a remote party on Zoom video, just like this. And, people will come. It's a bring your own beverage type of experience, designed just to be fun and funny. And basically, we're going to have all these like crazy questions. And then I'll hit the button and it will separate everyone into the groups. I don't know if you've ever done that, or you can separate people into rooms on Zoom video, and you don't know who you're going to get. And all of a sudden it's like, boom, it's like the 4 of you in a room, and it's people in Thailand and Cambodia and Tampa, Florida. And the question is like, what is the craziest Christmas present you've ever gotten? Or, what is the most embarrassing thing that you've ever done? It's just going to be a whole variety of questions that we'll do for an hour and a half. And every like 3 minutes or 5 minutes, you get put into a different room with different people and have a couple laughs. And I guarantee when you hang up, you're like, man, I just reconnected with 120 like random people that work in the company. How hilarious is that? We sort of also do that. We're going to be launching something called Rustic Roulette, where basically we'll have everyone's name in sort of the hopper, and once a week you'll get connected with someone else out there in the company, and it's a little more like the 30-minute anniversary or welcome call that I have with people, and we'll have like some questions to drive the conversation if people get bored and don't know how to like have a conversation with one another. But just like, tell me, where did you grow up, and do you have brothers and sisters or children, or what's up with your parents, and get to know each other. And so for us, within this bubble, again, this is something that's completely free. It takes a little bit of company time, but it goes a super duper duper long way in building culture and the intrinsic energy that drives people to make them want to do their job. So once you nail all 4 of these, the next thing you do is get into growth, or personal growth, professional growth, professional development. We know we've all heard these terms. This was one of the most requested things at Rustic Pathways over the last 18 months. We want more professional development. We want more professional development. So I spent a long time researching this idea and thinking about it similar to what we're talking about. How do we do this in a way that's true to Rustic Pathways, our company, our culture? So I came up with a 2-pronged approach to professional development. One is to create this professional learning community. And so as I thought of professional development, what came to me is, look, I know people need to be better at their jobs, and we can certainly provide competency building for people's jobs, and I'll get into that in point 2. But what's more important for me actually is helping them to develop to be a better person, to be a better employee, and a better teammate, and a better manager. But it will also help them be a better spouse, and a better mother or father, and a better son or daughter, and a better sibling. And so what we've done is every other month we bring in an outside expert to talk to our company on Zoom video, and this could be a Zoom video commercial. And we look at things like mindfulness, and like, what does that really mean? And for those of us that don't meditate at all, like, what are the actual benefits of learning to control the chatter in our brains and the internal frustrations and the fight that we have in our brain when we're not even talking to somebody else, and what makes us like blow a gasket and get super angry about something. So every other month we bring in someone to address something that helps you be a better human out there in the world. We're going to bring in, there's a professor at Yale right now that's teaching the most attended course, I think, in the history of college of how to be happy. And the reality, like, happiness is a fascinating subject to me. It's like, basically, the natural assumption is like, we need to grow our economy to have bigger and better houses and cars that work better so that one day we can like reach this level of happiness. But the reality of the world, and I can say this from traveling in the world and what we do as a company, is like, happiness is up here. It's your interpretation of the events that are happening in real life, the meaning that you put on those events, like how you interpret the day-to-day moments that are happening in your life. So we bring people in to talk about stuff like that. And the funny thing is, it is to help them have a better life. But what will happen is they will be a better employee. When they're answering the phone with the customer when nobody's looking, they're not going to be short-tempered. They're going to be like in a happy mode, and that will help your company. So, sorry, long-winded way of saying the professional learning community is super strong. This is something like, if you ask me like, what are the things I'm passionate about, I think this is extremely contemporary and good for people. The second one is what most people have. We have a competency library. How do you manage people? How do you manage your time? How do you write good business emails? How do you deal with disciplining people? All the classic things. We probably have 45 units in our competency library. We have our own onboarding. We have sort of like learning communities that go through different subjects. We have managers that take one thing out of the competency library every single month and they teach it, with their group, and they have, again, like a group get together on Zoom video like this. And then people can go into the competency library and say, hey, I'm a super ambitious individual and I want to dominate all 45 units. Good for them. Go at it. I would say the one thing I learned with building the competency library is that we very, very, very specifically did not buy an off-the-shelf solution. And so for us, if we would have got something like Linda or Learning Heroes or the ones we looked at, and no offense to any of those competency libraries, it wouldn't have worked for our organization. And so I brought in a consulting company to look at the topics that we wanted covered. And I was like, go out there and find the coolest, most contemporary content, the cutting edge TED Talk, the really interesting article, the funny video, or like whatever it is, get content that speaks to a millennial. And it's not some super boring one hour thing. The third thing for us that we have fully put in place is our performance management system. My opinion on this one is you do need some type of performance management cycle. I like to keep it lean and mean. And so at the beginning of the year, people understand their objectives and we have a conversation, do you have everything you need to accomplish those? Everyone has weekly meetings with their people, checking in on progress towards goal. Halfway through the year, we do something called the 2x2. This is something I really would recommend for people. I actually do this with my wife. And it's basically like, what are 2 things that I'm doing well? What are 2 things I could work on? And it goes both directions. And so it's great as a manager, you get to hear, say you manage 8 people, you get 8 pieces of feedback of 2 things you're doing well, 2 things you're working on. I do it with the executive team. It's light, it's fun. It's like, as long as people go into it with an open mind and open heart, works super duper well. And then the last thing is our annual review. Again, we do not do some overly intense 360 review that takes weeks to organize. Ours is basically 3 sections. How did people do relative to accomplishment of their goals? Did people perform and act in a way that aligns with the company's values? And then number 3 is what is something that these people need to work on in the future year? But it's light, it's easy. Again, it goes both directions. I will just touch on that part. I mentioned a lot, like we're a very vision-driven organization. Actually, I think that's really important. Vision is the why, which Simon Sinek talks a ton about. What is the why of your company? Like, why are we doing this work? People are actually driven by the why. Your mission tends to be your what. Like, this is what we do. And people love to lead with, like, this is what my company does. I started off with, like, this is what Rustic Pathways does. That's actually not as emotionally inherently driving for people. And then your values are your how. How do you expect people to accomplish this vision? How do you expect them to act every day that's in alignment with your vision? I just mentioned those things because I find that running a mission, vision, and values run organization is a great high-level framework for building a company. So I mentioned 3 things for personal and professional growth. I'm going to mention 3 more that we don't invest in yet. But again, this is like the full-on portfolio of things you could be thinking about depending on your company. The next one is conferences, seminars, and networking opportunities. Truth be told, we do send a bunch of people to conferences and seminars. I'm very open-minded for it. If anyone asks me, like, hey, can I go to this one conference because I'm super excited about the subject? I tend to say yes, rather than like create a budget and be like, you have $2,000 to go to any conference. What do you want to choose? So this happens more at the executive and management level. Unfortunately, we're not doing it a ton for people on the front lines. One day I hope we have the budget to do that. The 5th thing I think comes for bigger companies, the last 2. This is if you're a really, really big company, continuing education, tuition reimbursement, paying for people's certifications, bringing in professional coaches for executives. These are things we'd love to do down the line. We're not there yet as a company. But my point being, if you're looking at the world of professional development, personal growth, I think you can accomplish it in a robust way looking at these 6 things. So last, and certainly not least, and we'll get this done in the last couple of minutes so we leave plenty of time for questions, is looking at giving back. So this is, as I mentioned, this is actually the bullseye. Interestingly enough, and I've read a lot about this, we feel the best about ourselves. Like, we're the most excited when we're in an environment where someone else is telling us, like, thank you so much for what you did, or like, Dad, I love you so much, or, you know, someone's like, you know, we're giving the award to this person for doing this thing. When someone else is externally like providing us with that genuine positive energy for something we've provided them, actually, like, that's the #1 human driver in our absolute core, which I find fascinating, gives me a lot of faith and trust in the future. So how can we provide giving back as a company? Again, there's only a couple things here. #1 for us is keeping people connected to our company's student impact and community impact, key performance indicators. So from a student side of things, we have these students traveling out, 14,000 students traveling through all these countries in the world, and we measure something called their student learning outcomes, which is how much they grow in the areas of humility, empathy, self-awareness. They're wanting to help the world. And we share these results with the organization. And again, it makes people feel like the job I'm doing every day, the person in the shipping office that's sending out T-shirts and catalogs and stuff, they literally are contributing to the growth that these students are having overseas. Second thing is our community impact, the amount of money that we're investing in communities, building homes, building schools, you know, just fortunately the work that we're able to do as a company. You know, people get to see our community impact report every year, and it sort of sums up, you know, this is the total impact that we had out there in the world. It's super exciting, and we just happen to be lucky because that's sort of the core of the business model. So there's a lot there. Second thing is expertise sharing and mentoring across the company. Again, this is another free thing that you can do. And so for that professional learning community, one of our staff members is certified in teaching is it like the 7 or 8 characteristics of highly effective people, 7 characteristics of like highly effective people. She's going to come in and teach that course to our company. And so she's certified in it. She's an employee. She's actually in charge of our whole flights and travel area, booking flights and airport coordinators and booking hotels. But it's going to be very cool for her. I'm sure coming off of that, she's going to feel awesome about herself. Same thing with our competency library for those who think like, I really, really, really know how to do project management. We let people come in and record a unit on doing that. And the second part of this is mentoring across the company. And so new employees get a mentor buddy. And you know, like everyone has a manager, and you go to your manager to say, hey, I need to take a day off, or here's typical manager requests. But then they have a buddy to say, hey, like I'm trying to find out how this company really operates below the surface. And again, people like being in that mentor role. It's good for the mentee, it's good for the mentor, it's completely free. The third thing is supporting other staff in their philanthropic work. And so our chief marketing officer joined the Movember movement, where he grew out his mustache, and we, you know, contributed to his thing. You know, we have people run races and ride bikes and stuff like that. And as a company, we typically support their causes in small amounts. And so to sum up, is we as a company, Rustic Pathways, look at the population of millennials that we are recruiting, hiring, training, and employing, and understanding that we want the good ones to stay around. We're happy to performance manage the not so good ones out of the company. We look at how do we actually, what's our philosophy on compensation, support, and development. We've taken a framework that we think resonates well below the surface, like right down to people's bones. And it's basically hitting these 6 core human needs that we can hit in a unique way as Rustic Pathways and almost like deliver these benefits subconsciously. Like they're feeling it and living it rather than seeing it pop into their bank account every month. And it's through security, making their life safe, secure. They can live inside a budget and be at Rustic Pathways forever. It's variety, making their life super fun, exciting, different, weird, crazy. It's self-worth, making sure that people aren't just a number in your Excel sheet, but that they're actually a real human being with a real purpose. It's really connecting with what we do as a company. There's love in creating connections, helping build that culture, helping people connect on a real human value. There's personal growth, which is creating an environment where people feel like they're growing and learning and being better every single day. And then it's supporting this idea of giving back, putting people in positions where they're able to give back to other people. So that's all I have to share for today. It's a 45-minute on the dot. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Hope that is worthwhile. Open for questions now and at any point in the future.
Thank you so much, Chris. That's the most on time we've ever had someone end the speaking part. It's very impressive. So feel free again to chat in your questions. We collected a few while you were talking, so I can kind of prompt you with those as people are typing in other ones. The first one here, we're trying to move to a more flexible work environment where people can work from anywhere, but need to convince leaders that employees don't need to be in the office to show that they're working. Any advice?
Yeah, you know, this is sort of old school, new school. And I would say old school idea is like you need people in the room sitting at their desks on chairs and computers while the manager walks around. The reality is, if you can motivate people from the inside out, build an environment of trust and transparency, you know, I think you can build a culture where you have the ability for people to work remotely outside of your office and where you can see them. And the reality is, even within their work, you know, it's sort of classic. If you don't build that second part, you know, you still have people at a computer working, going like, when do I get to go home? When do I get to go home? When do I get to go home? Or every time the person leaves the room, you know, they're back on Facebook checking things. And so I think by building the second part, you actually build in what really drives people. You connect with people. You make them feel special for being at your company. You help them understand what they're contributing to the company. Quick analogy, I was a high school and college athlete, and I always said there's two types of coaches. There's coaches that walk around with a whistle in their mouth, and then there's coaches that when you lose a game, you feel like terrible and you're crying because you let your coach down. And so you want to become the second type of coach. You don't need or want to be the disciplinarian. You want your employees to feel like they're lucky to have their job and they're fighting every day to win for the entire community of employees. And when you can create that, which I think you can do through these 6 things, then you can take the shackles off and let them fly around. The second thing that's also very, very practical to this, though, is we basically, and I can take this offline at some point and show you sort of the waterfall planning documents, but we have, you know, our mission, our vision, our values, and then we have sort of our where to play, how to win strategy, and then we have our company goals for the year, and then it goes down to department and division objectives. And when you click into that, it goes into like your team plan. And the managers run it a little differently, but pretty parallel. And so the way things are run is that Rachel and Hamza and I like each have something to do, and it's due Wednesday end of day because Thursday morning it's all coming together with a meeting. And at the end of the day, if you can run a team with like tight deliverables and deadlines, then you can tell if people aren't doing their work. And if they can do their work super fast, good for them. And then we also have sort of per hour employees that are on the phone or emails answering generalized questions. And you can, you know, through modern day software, you can see like who's answering the most phone calls and who's on the phone the most and who has high email volumes. So you can track that stuff remotely. I would say traditional managers, this is a fear they have, and it is a new skill set to learn. But I've found that there's more benefits than downsides. I think the actual downsides of working remotely is that you don't get to create that like person-to-person camaraderie in the room.
Awesome, thank you. Another one here, do you pay for maternity and paternity leaves?
We do, and I would say we're more flexible on the time off than we are generous with the pay. And so the pay is like sort of like the standard pay. I want to say you get like 2 months off paid, and then you can take, and then it's like 2 months off paid. We sort of encourage 6 months is good if you want to do it. If you want to do longer, we're super open-minded. But I think we pay sort of like the standard amount. Again, due to the nature of the work of our company, we're not rolling around in money. And so we're sort of tight on money and more flexible on other things.
This next one actually kind of plays into that. You talked about focusing on the benefit areas where you win the most. What are the areas you focus on at Rustic Pathways?
In terms of winning the most, so here, I would just give a quick rundown on, I think, the areas where we're winning the most, specifically compared to other organizations. I think we win with like our staff travel policy, people traveling internationally, and then everyone's sons and daughters, if they're in high school, they can travel on all of our programs for free. And the neat thing about that is, like, we tell clients all the time, like, literally, like, our kids are on the programs with their kids. Like, trust me, these are safe programs. So our remote working environment, staff travel policy, I think our company get-togethers are exceptionally fun and sort of like deep. They're like, I see people like crying in our meetings and stuff because they're like learning these new skill sets. I think our vision and what we're trying to do as a company is really motivating for people. I think the whole idea of like belonging and trust and transparency, I think we do that really, really well. We are an open book. I think that the professional learning community component of bringing people from the outside to talk about things like relationship management, you know what I mean? Like, that's a very real thing. Like, if we have a spouse or a crabby brother or sister or something, like, relationship management is like a really interesting subject. To answer the reverse of it, like, where are the areas that are tough for us to navigate around? We're never going to be the highest paying company. Our benefits are like doable. They're like pretty standard. They get you to where you need to be. We don't have a 401k match yet. People talk about that all the time. It's one of the things we're putting into place. We don't have tons of excess money for professional development. So, I think in a general way, we tend to win with cutting edge approaches, modern day approaches to some of these categories. I think our tougher areas are, not having extra money on hand to throw money at problems.
Okay, perfect. This one, this may be personal, but are you a millennial? If not, how did you go about learning what matters to them and what works best for them?
Great question. I'm 40, so I turned 40 11 days ago. So I think I'm not a millennial, but I'm a 16-year-old at heart, and so I feel like a millennial. Maybe I could just like resonate with them really, really well. I'm a young spirit, not an old spirit. And the way that this really happened for me, I came into Rustic Pathways in 2002. It was a 2-decade-old company, but very, very small. I was like the 4th employee. And I was just in a lucky position. They asked me to go open Costa Rica. We ended up having more people travel in Costa Rica than had ever traveled with the company a given year. And we went like 7 years in a row, doubling in size every year. And so at that point, the founder and owner said, hey, like, start building teams and doing what you're doing in all these other countries. And so I basically, from 2003 until now, built teams and like managed tons and tons of young people. And so it really was, and again, I could take this offline because I've learned tons and tons and tons of lessons, and I've seen some great people go. I think I understand the motivations and priorities of millennials. And actually, I have a deep found respect for it, to be honest. But the reason I feel like I I could be like an expert in speaking about managing millennials is because I've been doing it for since they were a category of people that were old enough to be employed. And so it's been through learning what works and what doesn't work, and talking with people, like going out for a beer with them and learning more about how their brain works. And the reality, like one of the main things is like, they get how life works and they know you got to make money to like live, but they want to do something with their life. They're not actually. I worked with an executive from Pepsi for a while. She had her kids travel with us. She was working with the organization. She was like, Pepsi has a terrible time trying to recruit employees, young people, because they don't want to sell sugary drinks and like potato chips. They're just not fired up by it. And again, that's not a hit on Pepsi. It's just like really interesting to know that if you're working in some of the more traditional businesses, you got to figure out a way to really create positive impact in the world, because that type of stuff resonates with millennials.
Awesome. This one is a two-part question. The first part, you are in a seemingly fun industry. Do you have not so fun times, and how do you navigate them? And then the second part, she asks, also, I'm the mom of a millennial. Can I send him your way?
Yes. Please contact me. We'll give you the special Small Giants discount. The nature of our work is super duper fun. And so if you take the 14,000 people that travel with us, 99% of the kids are having an awesome time. 140 kids, which is like almost a kid every other day, is like something is going down, and so we deal with a lot of challenges. It's like running a 14,000 student high school that's traveling around the world, and you get the cross section of like very well behaved people that follow the rules and are good people, and then you get people with social emotional challenges, and they want our 3 rules are no drinking, no alcohol, no drugs, no sex, and like 30% of the people, that is like top of mind of what they hope to accomplish while they're out there. And then I deal with the same stuff, companies deal with, people performing low and you have to fire them. I've had to fire my best friends. I've dealt with, I've dealt with a lot of crazy company stuff and people stealing money and, internal investigations and sexual harassment and sexual assault and, pretty much the gamut of what a company deals with. Firing people that are completely unaligned with our values. I'd say that's been like most of our heartache. It's like this behind the scenes stuff. The on the surface stuff, it is fun to work in like a industry that is built on like giving back. Even though the truth be told, the irony is we get more from the communities and countries where we operate than we are giving back. No matter how much we're putting in there, the number one thing we hear from parents and kids is like, that completely changed my life. And so that's just it is a good feeling, a good environment to work in.
Awesome, thank you. I think we'll wrap there. We're pretty close to 2, and we always like to have time. Thank you so much, Chris.